Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Saw the Devil. This is Robin.
And this is Jackie.
And we have a pretty cool episode for you guys today.
Yeah, this one's from down under.
It is. We are heading to Australia for this episode. And don't you love it when you find a new true crime case and you become obsessed with it?
You just can't stop looking at everything. You end up online and going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and you're looking for absolutely everything that you can put your hands on. Well, that's exactly what happened to me with this case.
I almost had to get an intervention for you.
Yeah.
I almost had to call some people.
I almost molded to this chair. I'm super excited to talk about it, but before we get into that, let's just go over a couple housekeeping items. First, you can find us anywhere and everywhere at We Saw the Devil, and surprise, our website is wesawthedevil.com.
Wow.
Wow. Also, our episodes are now available to stream directly from our website as well. So if you are...
When did that happen?
Over the last week, we have a stream now on our website. So if you're surfing the web and don't want to pull out your phone or what other application you use, you can now just stream directly from the website. Secondly, our Patreon. As always, if you're liking the show, loving the show, or just want to financially back it and get some pretty cool perks while doing it, you can go to patreon.com/WeSawTheDevil and support us for as little as $3 a month.
Same as sacrificing a cup of coffee.
We have some cool stuff, some cool perks, so check us out. That's patreon.com/WeSawTheDevil. Now, in the vein of postcards and Patreon, I would like to give a shout out to our Patreons for your continued support. USPS, the United States Postal Service, sucks.
You guys, I think it's just the aftermath of the apocalypse. It's kind of like the foreshocks of an earthquake. Like all these hiccups keep happening and ice storms and people like freezing and not having water. So like that kind of packages up a little bit. And we're sorry about that.
Yeah, we're sorry about that. I keep trying to be fully transparent and post the tracking in our Patreon and Facebook groups because we sent this stuff out on February 9th and it is now the 1st. So... Yay, but it is coming. USPS has promised me. It's just with all of the natural disasters and storms and ice storms and everything, it has been apparently tremendously delayed. That being said, how are all of our Texas people doing?
Yeah, how are you guys? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I cannot fathom. I cannot imagine.
I hope you're all well.
Yeah, I hope you're all well. I hope you're safe, that you didn't lose heat or electricity for too long. I've heard and read some really, really, really sad, heartbreaking stories about that.
Hope y'all are okay.
Okay, guys, so let's talk about this episode tonight. Let's just get into it. If you look at our cover art, the cover art that we have for this episode says, in 2016, at this beach, 2 young female backpackers fought for their lives in a real-life Wolf Creek. Now, Jackie, you've seen Wolf Creek.
Yes, I have.
How did you feel about it?
Honestly, I used to live in Australia and stuff about Australia actually excites me. And when I saw it, I thought it was terrifying.
So for those of you who are not into horror or are not in the know, Wolf Creek is a 2005 Australian horror film written, produced, and directed by Greg McLean. In the film, 2 British girls travel to Australia to meet up with their friend Ben, where the trio will then backpack all across Australia, taking the Great Northern Highway. The 3 make a stop in Wolf Creek Park, where their car breaks down, and spoiler alert, all hell breaks loose as a racist, xenophobic Australian madman named Mick systematically hunts them down in an epic cat and mouse game.
Oh, it's crazy too. It's like cars are chasing them on foot and everything.
Mm-hmm. It is a fantastic film. It has an even better sequel and also a TV series that actually ran for 2 seasons and 12 episodes. So find it, watch it, love it. 2 thumbs up and 5 stars from me. What about you, Jackie?
Same, actually. I'm not going to dispute that at all. And I think that actually depicts the landscape too.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of Wolf Creek. Whenever I hear about a true crime case happening in the outback or in certain areas, I immediately think of Wolf Creek. Now, I could 100% talk about horror movies for the rest of this episode and every single one going forward.
No, Robin, don't do it. You're not allowed.
But we are a true crime podcast after all. And plot twist, there is a massive true crime link to Wolf Creek and all of this.
Which is insane. I didn't even know until I walked in on you being obsessed.
Yes. You see, Wolf Creek, the movie, was marketed as being based on true events. Director Greg McLean has stated that his inspiration for the screenplay came from two particular Australian serial killers, Ivan Malott and Bradley Murdoch. Now, Ivan Malott, without a doubt, is Australia's most well-known serial killer. He was responsible for the rape, torture, and murder of 2 men and 5 women between 1989 and 1992. More than that, though, multiple rape survivors came forward after his arrest. All of his victims were backpackers, hence why his official serial killer nickname was the Backpacker Murderer. In 1992, 2 trail runners discovered a decomposing body, and this led to the police finding multiple more.
No, thank you.
Right? Imagine coming across that in the sweltering Australian sun.
Double no, thank you.
So a profile was created and theories were developed, but the case was a dead end. That is, until the following year when a man by the name of Paul Onions.
Wait, what?
Paul Onions.
Oh my God.
Like, that is probably, I've never heard that last name before.
No, and it's a little too close to Paul Bunyan.
I know. So Paul Onions, a British backpacker, called police the following year. Now, Paul had gone backpacking in Australia 4 years prior and had a harrowing experience. He said that he was backpacking and had accepted a ride from a man named Bill. So things were vibing and going pretty well until Bill pulled his SUV over, brought out rope and a gun, and told Paul that it was a robbery. So Paul booked it down the street and got away. He basically got into a car of a passing motorist, and he and that driver were able to call the police and describe Bill and the vehicle. Now, Paul had immediately phoned the police to report it the day that it happened, but nothing ever came of it. However, in his new phone call to police, this was 4 years later, it ended up being the break that they needed. So the police reread the old police reports, and they were able to use the descriptions of both the car and perpetrator to identify Ivan Malott. Now, police put surveillance on Malott and conducted interviews with his friends and coworkers. They were basically like, yeah, he's a psychopath, he's violent, he's aggressive, he's obsessed with weapons, and he treats women really, really poorly.
Don't they usually?
It seems to be a package deal there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does.
So police arrested him, and Paul Onions, bless his heart, flew to Australia to identify him. And Malott was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 7 life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Wow.
He would track, literally hunt backpackers, and then insert himself under the guise of helping them. So imagine going to a gas station, getting gas, and then have someone off in the distance watching you and stalking you like an animal.
No, I'm good.
And he would follow them for hours, like 6, 7, 8 hours on the highways, and people had no idea. He would just follow them.
How terrifying.
Yeah, and so they would pitch a camp or on a campsite, and he would come up, or if they didn't expect it, he would mess with their car so it wouldn't start. And then when they were like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" he'd be like, "Here, let me help you."
That's some horror movie stuff. No wonder.
That's literally Texas Chainsaw Massacre level stuff.
That's scary. No, I'm good. That's like one of my biggest fears, that and being carjacked. How many of you have the fear of being carjacked? I kind of wonder, because I'm like always prepared. My doors are always locked.
So after Malott inserted himself into the situation under the guise of helping people, backpackers or travelers, he would stab them in the spine, paralyzing them. And then he would exact all kinds of sexual and physical torture on them. And this was all heard in his trial. After his sentencing, he was known for the outbursts that he would have in prison. Like, he would swallow metal, razor blades, pens, and he even cut off his own pinky finger with a plastic knife with the intent of mailing it to the judge who presided over his trial.
That's a little crazy, Albert Fish.
Yeah. Now, he died in 2019 of esophageal cancer. And in the news that makes me literally squee with joy, as I was writing this episode that we're doing tonight, in Australia's The Telegraph, it published a story with the headline, Ivan Malott died wearing a nappy.
A nappy. I love that they call diapers nappies.
I know. And seriously, fuck that guy.
No, seriously, so much fuck that guy. I will never, ever look at my car the same after I parked, going for a jog and, on a trail or anything. I'm going to always, look at my surroundings now and be like, is my car okay?
No, he was seriously terrifying. And if you've seen the movie Wolf Creek, Mick, the lead character, is loosely, he has a really big personality, loves Australian football and food and beer and,
footy.
Footy and all of this stuff. And he's heavily based on Malott. So we may or may not do a full episode on him in the future, but there is your fairly good synopsis, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, Bradley Murdoch is the other person that Wolf Creek was based off of, and he's another piece of trash. In this case, I started going down this rabbit hole as well. He is currently serving life with the possibility of parole for the 2001 murder of British backpacker Peter Falconio in a remote section of the Australian outback. Now, I know that all of you have heard about this case, even if you don't remember his name, because this case, when it happened back in 2001, it was on the cover of Reader's Digest, everything.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
Everywhere. So what happened in this one is Peter Falconio and his girlfriend, Joanne Lee, left Britain. They were British, which is so weird that all of these people and backpackers are British. So they left to backpack across the world. And they traveled to multiple countries and destinations, but they ended up in Australia for that leg of their trip. They rented a car. Now, as they were driving through Barrow Creek, they stopped at a roadhouse for gas and food. They noticed a large SUV tailing them. It would drive up close to their bumper, almost hit them, and then slow down. And this went on for hours. The SUV then eventually sped up and around them and pulled over on the side of the road. And,
nope.
Right? Peter, for some reason, pulled over to confront the driver.
Oh, that's a good idea.
The man told him that he was just merely trying to notify them that they had sparks coming out of his exhaust pipe. So as Peter and this man went behind the car to look at the exhaust, Joanne got into the driver's seat to help by revving the engine.
Nope.
She heard a loud bang and saw Peter collapse to the ground. The man was suddenly at the driver's window holding a silver gun. He got into the car and bound her hands behind her back. He attempted to tape her feet and mouth, but Joanne was able to fight him off when he returned to move Peter's body. Like, he got out of the car, she fought him off, and then she ended up running and hightailing it into the bush. Now, Joanne, and this is the part that everyone's heard about, she hid in the Australian outback in like the brush and under little bushes and stuff, darting in between them for 5 whole hours as Bradley Murdoch hunted her with a torch and a big game rifle.
Oh my God, a torch, flashlight, guys.
Joanne hid for 5 hours, and then she ended up flagging a motorist down and ended up making it to safety. Now, she testified against Murdoch in his murder and assault trial. Bradley Murdoch was sentenced to life imprisonment with a non-parole period of 28 years. He will be up for parole in 2033 at the age of 74, if and only if he reveals the location of Peter Falconio's body, which has never been found.
Are we kidding? Why can't you just say it?
Now, something that's interesting that you don't see a lot of, normally in situations like these, people, the media would flock around, say, Joanne, right, in her situation, in support.
Yeah,
they would lift her up with love and support. Not at all the case in this story. Quite a bit of drama and controversy has surrounded Joanne, and she is consistently crucified in the media and online web forums. Last year, Australian television ran a series called Murder in the Outback. And first of all, it showed interrogation footage of Joanne when she came in and answered questions and provided information. In that, she admitted that she was having an affair at the time that Peter was murdered. Also, when investigators went to the bush, exactly where she supposedly hid, they could only find her footprints.
Oh.
There were no other footprints. No dog, no person, nothing. Just hers. Australian author Keith Allen Noble has written extensively about the case, saying that he believes that yes, something really did in fact happen to Joanne that night, but not the way she described it. So he more or less is calling her a liar. And if you look at any comment section on any article about this case, everyone is like, screw Joanne. She's a lying piece. Everyone hates her.
Do you think she's lying?
I have not examined the evidence enough to even throw my 2 cents in on that one. Now, the author, Keith Allen Noble, is a bit of a conspiracy theorist in itself. So,
he's not very credible.
Not credible whatsoever. But many, 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 many people who are interested in the case and have spent the time to pore over the evidence do believe the same. Police have also admitted that she did tell a series of non-facts. So,
I mean, but when you're like traumatized and stuff, sometimes that does happen. That's not uncommon too.
Like
I not be able to recall something.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, I was in high school when it happened, and I remember I was at like a doctor's appointment or something with my parents. There was a cover of Reader's Digest, and I literally sat there and read all about her and the interview with her. And this case stuck with me because can you imagine traveling to another country to go backpacking, and all of a sudden your, boyfriend is shot, basically almost carjacked and kidnapped and probably raped and murdered. Let's be real. I mean, that's where a woman goes, when that happens. A lot of times, yeah. And then you're hunted for 5 hours. It's terrifying. This case actually terrified me. But in 2017, police received an anonymous letter stating that Murdoch had cut up Peter's body into small pieces and then destroyed the remains in an acid bath on a farm in Perth. Police are still investigating that letter. So how do those two cases pertain to the episode that we are going to be discussing today? I find it profoundly interesting that when it comes to Australia in particular, the largest cases almost always share the same theme. So we will once again be discussing backpackers in the case that we will be covering today. And I have to say again that this case just floored me. When I discovered it, I immediately went down the rabbit hole. I read or watched every single piece of media covering it, every single interview. This is my number one case for just me racking my brain. If I were in this scenario, what would I do and would I survive? And I know for a fact that I wouldn't even come close to having the strength or fortitude to survive this attack.
Wait, so you're telling me that your Hunger Games score is very low?
It would be very, very low. In this case this evening, there are 2 survivors. And had I been in this, I would not have survived.
I don't know if I would have survived or not.
This is the story of the attack at Salt Creek. It begins with 2 23-year-old girls from different countries, Beatrice from Brazil and Ylana from Germany, meeting one another at a youth hostel in Adelaide. They become fast friends and quickly learn that they have the same travel plans, wanting to get to Melbourne via the Great Ocean Road, a 151-mile-long coast-hugging drive that is considered Victoria's most beautiful and scenic route. So the 2 decide to place an ad on Gumtree, a popular UK classifieds website, searching for someone who could drive them to Melbourne. 2 people replied. The first was a younger man, and they made plans to meet him, but the night before their departure, he had car troubles and had to cancel. The second offer came from a man by the name of Roman Hines. Roman was overly pushy in his correspondence with Beatrice, demanding an answer as to whether they wanted him to drive them or not. Desperate for a ride and feeling relatively confident that they would be safe in a pair, they accepted Roman's offer to drive them. The women met up on their departure day, February 9th, 2016, and Roman Hines was waiting for them. Wearing blue jeans with a white polo and a centered blue stripe, and at 59 years old and 6'6".
Oh my God.
That's a large man.
Yeah, I would say no. The second I saw him, I'd be like, no, Ed Kemper, not today.
And for reference, Ed Kemper was 6'9", so this man was almost as big as Ed Kemper.
Oh my God, Ed Kemper is terrifying. I think he's the most terrifying serial killer, like as far as like height and stuff.
Completely agree. So Roman Hines was a very imposing figure. He had unkempt, thinning brown hair with a very large mustache, and he was a bit overweight, little bit of a gut. And Beatrice and Ylana were very surprised as to how old he was. Nevertheless, the trio set out for the Great Ocean Road. And Beatrice, sitting in the front passenger seat, took several videos and selfies of the drive, and also a selfie of her and Ylana, who was sitting in the back seat behind Roman. They left in the morning, and after driving for only 4.5 hours, Roman pulls off into Salt Creek and tells them that he wants to set up camp at Tea Tree Crossing on the beach. The women didn't quite understand why. I mean, it was still midday and there was plenty of time to travel, and Roman just made up an excuse. They set up a small campsite, complete with tents, tables, a propane grill, and chairs. And Roman and Beatrice began to cook a meal, and since Ylana was still jet-lagged and a bit exhausted, she asked to take a nap in the back of Roman's SUV. Beatrice assured her that she would be fine. Roman asked Beatrice if she wanted to take a walk with him because there was usually a pack of kangaroos in a nearby dune. And he claimed to have seen their tracks while setting up camp.
No thanks.
Wanting to see the native wildlife, Beatrice agreed and they started walking away from camp. It became evident rather quickly that there were no kangaroos at Salt Creek. Roman had lured Beatrice to a dune over the hill from the campsite, and there was nothing there. As she turned to walk back to the campsite, Roman struck. He approached her from behind and forcefully looped his arm around her neck and threw her to the ground. At first, for just a split second, she thought he was joking or weirdly roughhousing with her, but that was not the case.
That's not a good case.
No, it is not. Once Beatrice was on the ground, Roman Hines took a combat knife out from a hidden sheath behind his back and stabbed it into the sand beside her head.
Did she just get lucky, or?
He did it on purpose as a display of, as a threat.
Oh, great.
He placed a hammer nearby, produced the rope that he had brought with him from his pockets, and began to bound her hands and feet. Beatrice grabbed the rope and threw it as far as she could. Angered by her resistance...
We'll take that.
Angered by her resistance, Roman threatened to break her arm if she didn't make it easy for him. Once she was bound, he began to kiss and lick her.
Ew, no.
Disgusted, she tried to convince him to stop, but this only further incensed him, and he began to punch her in the face, telling her to shut up. He ripped her bikini off of her body with his knife, and then he raped her. In an incredible interview with 60 Minutes Australia, Beatrice described what she was feeling at that very moment. When asked whether she thought she was going to die, she said she wasn't sure, but that she imagined what it would look like for her mom to fly to Australia to see her body.
Oh, no.
She was only focusing on survival. She said, quote, "I felt like I was in a horror movie. You know the end, the torture. You know what's going to happen then." When Roman was finished, she spoke up again. Thinking fast, she appealed to him, telling him that he didn't have to do whatever he had planned, that they could continue whatever he wanted at the campsite. It would be more comfortable. She was okay with it. She tried to appeal to calm him down, basically. And initially, Roman seemed to buy that idea, so they started walking back to the camp together. As they drew closer, some sort of switch flipped and he became very angry, pulling her back in the opposite direction. Knowing that she just had one chance, she took a deep breath and screamed Lena's name one single time. Miraculously, over the sound of wind and crashing waves, Lena, who was still asleep in the back of the SUV at the camp, heard her. She immediately knew that something was wrong and darted in the direction that she thought the scream came from. As she ran over the hill, Lena saw Beatrice, nude on the ground with Roman standing over her. Like, can you imagine?
I don't want to. That's so scary. That's terrifying. Like, I mean, he's enormous, too.
Mm-hmm. And most people would be like, oh, hell no. Nope, not Lena. She took off running towards them. And she screamed at Roman and told him to let her go and to get off of her. Roman's reply didn't immediately make sense to Lena. All he said was, quote, "I just wanted to try her."
What?
Lena took off back to the campsite, planning to get her phone and call for help. As she made it back to the SUV and opened the door, fumbling around in her backpack, Roman approached her from behind. Lena felt and heard a hot, deafening crack, turned around, and realized that Roman had just bashed the back of her head with a hammer.
Ooh.
A struggle ensued, and Lena sustained 3 more hits with the hammer to the back of the head. At the time, she didn't realize it, but that first hammer strike was made with so much force that a 3-inch section of her skull was exposed.
Oh my God.
Bleeding profusely, Lena ran away from the campsite as fast as she could over the dunes, screaming for Beatrice. She found Beatrice further down the beach and ripped off her binds. Without hesitation or conversation, the two decided to split up for a better chance at survival. Lena took off running straight down the beach, whereas Beatrice hid in a bush right off of the path. Roman, after attacking Lena, had gotten into his Toyota 4x4 and driven it down onto the beach. Unfortunately, Lena was in plain view. He pushed the accelerator and caught up with her pretty quickly. With a 5,000-pound SUV driven by a madman literally biting at her ankles, Lena curved up and down the rocky dunes. I watched one particular documentary, and someone who lives in the area actually described this area, the dunes off of the beach. It's rocky, it has bush, but it's also marsh. So he said that you could be walking and it's rocky and hard, and then take a step and literally sink through sand. like 5 or 6 feet.
That's so terrifying.
So if that's giving you any indication, it's not like she was running on a track, you know, she's running not even just on a beach. She's running in dunes that alternate between hard rock, you know, dirt and marsh. So this was not easy. Now, Roman was trying to run her over, and he actually hit her multiple times with his car. And every single time, each time, Ylana would stand back up and take off running again.
Oh my God.
I know.
What?
This went on for over half a mile. They estimate, because they were able to track this in her path when the police investigators came, then this went on for 0.6 of a mile of her running as her skull was exposed. Now, a witness who later arrived on the scene described how Ylana's footprints stretched out over 4 feet apart. Think of this. This girl is like 5'2", 5'3". She's very, very small. Her footprints from foot to foot stretched 4 feet apart.
She was going.
She was going. She was literally running for her life. Realizing that she was near total exhaustion and couldn't continue for very much longer, she made a decision. As Roman once again approached her in the car, she turned around and jumped on the hood of the car. She pulled herself up onto the cargo hold on the roof. Roman stopped the car and grabbed his hammer. As he walked around the SUV, he tried to smash her legs or climb up there himself, and every single time, Ylana would kick him. Angry, Roman got back in the car and recklessly drove up and down the dunes, over rocks, back onto the beach. He would stop short, slam on the brakes, and he did all of this in an attempt to throw her off the roof. But she was literally holding on for her life, and she did not fall.
She's incredible.
I know. Like, move over, Wonder Woman. Like, we have a real life one. In a later interview, Ylana said that the blood was pouring so heavily from her wounds that it could only be described as blood rain. Officials later released photos of the top of the SUV showing the aftermath and carnage of it all. It was painted with her blood. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible how much blood loss she endured. And then there she was holding on to a roof rack as this crazy bastard was driving up and down hills, over rocks, into marsh, and slamming on her brakes.
How fast did she have to outrun him, I wonder? That's crazy.
And he hit her, she said, 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
She must have been in so much pain after.
I can't imagine. Utterly incensed and frustrated, Roman stopped the car and demanded once again that Ylana get down. On the brink of unconsciousness, Ylana offered a truce and agreed to come down.
Oh my God.
She got into the passenger seat and he gave her a baseball hat in an attempt to slow the bleeding from her head. They then drove back up towards the beach and the campsite. Now, while all of this was going on, during Ylana's ordeal, Beatrice had been hiding in the bushes. And don't forget, she's completely naked. She was just sexually assaulted. She saw, miraculously, a truck driving down the beach towards her. She ran up to it, screaming for help. It was a group of local fishermen. And once safely inside their car, they gave her a towel and phoned a local roadhouse. They were friends with the owner, Adam Stewart, and they told him that 2 girls had been attacked on the beach and one of them had been raped. Adam immediately notified police and then raced to the beach himself. The men wanted to take Beatrice to safety or to a hospital, right? But she was like, nope, we're going back for my friend that I've only known for 2 days.
She's that kind of badass.
Yeah. So she rejected that idea entirely, and instead she begged them to take her back to find Ylana. Somehow, there was yet a second group of fishermen on the beach. And as Ylana and Roman drove past them, Ylana, nearly completely unconscious, she describes it in an interview as flopping out the window because she's almost unconscious. Her window is down and she's just completely hanging partially outside the window. And so she does her best to wave at them in an attempt to get help. Well, they saw her and they saw that she was covered in blood and they were like, WTF. And so they ran to their car and also followed them. Now, at the same time, Beatrice and the car, filled with fishermen that she was with, they also approached. So now we have the 2 vehicles converging together, and they trapped Roman's car on a sand dune.
Take that, bastard.
Now, knowing that she just had one more opportunity, Ylana opened the door and made a run for it. The fishermen didn't know if she was male or female, or the extent of her injuries, because she was just a large red blur from all of the blood loss.
Oh my God.
And as she made it to safety, Roman took off yet again in his car. This is about the time the sun was starting to set, so it became a literal race against time. Adam Stewart, the roadhouse owner, and the police were now hunting Roman Hines. They spotted the silver Toyota 4x4 up on a sand dune, stuck.
Haha.
So Adam and the police blocked the car basically at every single angle, and Adam Stewart in his interview said that he was sitting in his car with his foot on the brake, and he said that had Roman moved an inch, he was just going to T-bone the hell out of him. So Roman actually ended up peacefully surrendering without any fight or resistance whatsoever.
I don't think he anticipated this at all.
At all. Oh, just you wait. So Beatrice and Lena were transported to the hospital. Lena was clearly admitted due to the severity of her head injuries, and Beatrice sat by her bed and silently held her hand.
Aww,
I know.
what a good best friend. I bet they're best friends. They have to be.
They have to be at this point. They'd only known each other for a couple days.
Oh no, now they're besties for life.
And they were literally willing to sacrifice their own individual wives to save the other.
Nothing builds a bond stronger than surviving a serial killer, I'm pretty sure.
Right? So the news of this attack quickly spread all over the country. Roman Hines' girlfriend, Sylvia Clark, immediately recognized the SUV because, it was on national news. Not only that, but Roman had just told her that he would be working and doing a job in Salt Creek. So she contacted police and agreed to be a witness. You see, Sylvia knew Roman better than anyone did. They had been together for a couple of years and only recently broke up. The first few years were apparently amazing, and Roman was a complete and total gentleman. There were pictures of them at upscale affairs and dinners, laughing and kissing. But she also knew the dark side of Roman Hines. Sometimes he would violently rape her.
Oh, sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes, because that apparently makes it better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just heinously sad. Once, it was so severe that she had to go to the hospital because she had bruises and bite marks covering nearly her entire body.
What a sick bastard.
He would beat the hell out of her.
Oh my God.
Now, she also, at this particular instance, she reported it to police. And that's actually what makes the next part so infuriating. The judge from the Supreme Court, who would eventually be presiding over the trial, would not allow Sylvia's photographed bruises or attack to be introduced as evidence against him, because she did not believe that it was a clear case of rape. She said that it could have just been a consensual sexual encounter.
That's actually very common for a lot of women who are in relationships with abusive men who rape them. A lot of the times police will say that. Like, well, I'm not convinced. It could be consensual encounter.
So during this police investigation, they found a box of condoms and a personal lubricant in his glove box. They found 2 full-length pornos on his phone and hundreds of hours of violent rape-based porn on his home computer. It was also uncovered that Roman Hines had attacked other backpackers in the past.
I wish stuff like that, like people like him, didn't have that outlet.
I know.
I just really think that it should be outlawed entirely. I mean, I'm not saying censor art or anything like that, but there's no art in like rape porn.
No, 2 years before his attack on Lena and Beatrice, Hines raped and assaulted another young female backpacker in Adelaide. He was actually temporarily jailed for that attack, but placed on good behavior bond under the conditions that he would not use any means to contact other people. Upon that release, he breached his bond by then attacking another woman, and she was also a backpacker. But here's the thing. Between his 2014 rape and assault and the 2016 rape and assault against Beatrice and Lena, respectively, Roman Hines had reached out to 13 other backpackers.
Oh my God.
On Gumtree, offering rides. Lena and Beatrice were numbers 14 and 15. One of the women who he corresponded with on Gumtree was a backpacker from Japan, and she accepted his ride. She actually met up with him and got in the car with him. But after he discovered that she had taken his picture and posted it online, he immediately ended the trip and dropped her off at a roadhouse.
Way to go, girl.
He became obsessed with her. Investigators discovered that he began to Google search phrases like how to hurt a woman during sex and do Japanese women like being raped?
Oh, because he didn't get the opportunity.
Exactly. His most commonly searched words were, like keywords, right? Were brutal, rape, and fetish. His online shopping reflected searches for bondage harnesses, bondage kits, and slave gear. And all of that is what the court heard during Roman Hines' trial before South Australia's Supreme Court. And a little bit more about Roman. There's not a terrible amount of information, but he was born in West Germany, and he moved to Australia in 1959 with his parents and 2 brothers. He was married twice and had 5 children. The first marriage lasted like 6 or 7 years. His second marriage actually lasted 22 years.
He had 5 children?
He had 5 children. And his ex-wives were shocked by the news. They called him docile, caring, sweet. His children loved him. Nothing amiss, really.
Wow, can you imagine sleeping next to a monster like that and not knowing how, being shocked by that?
Yeah.
That's weird.
And his children felt the same way. They were like, what? He very much had an escalating interest in rape and violent pornography, and his behavior was almost textbook escalation. In total, he was sentenced for 8 offenses of violence against 4 different women. The charges related to Ylana and Beatrice were aggravated kidnapping, causing harm with the intent to cause harm, assault, endangering life, and indecent assault.
I wonder how this would have played out had he not had access to rape porn.
Right.
I just kind of wonder those things, right? Like, I think a lot of people do.
I've always wondered if we'll have that conversation after. At his sentencing, Justice Trish Kelly of South Australia's Supreme Court said that Ylana and Beatrice only survived because the 2 of them were there together. She said, quote, "Even though you have presented as a docile, forlorn, and at times rather pathetic character sitting in the dock over these past few months, it's obvious you are a man with a very strong anger management issue. Equally obvious that you have violent and obsessive sexual preoccupations for which you have amply demonstrated you're capable of acting out." In regards to Ylana and Beatrice, Justice Kelly said, quote, "Both of them were courageous enough and intelligent enough to outwit and outsmart you at every step."
Yes.
"Your crimes against Beatrice were committed solely in the pursuit of the gratification of your own perverted sexual fantasies and desires. The offense committed against Ylana Rebente in chasing her down like a frightened rabbit and running her over and at her again and again was utterly depraved. This is not the conduct of a civilized human being, but it is the behavior of an enraged and somewhat primitive man lacking any moral compass whatsoever. You are a very dangerous person, especially to the young women who you have consistently sought out via the internet to accompany them on their various travels."
How many rapes did he commit, I wonder?
We don't know. "The only way in which the community can be properly protected from you is to impose a non-parole period which does not permit you to leave the jail until you are a relatively old man. Men who commit the kinds of crimes you committed go a long way to destroying the community's sense of security and safety. In committing these crimes, you've undermined yet again the reputation of this country as safe, attractive, and friendly destination for young backpackers from all over the world."
Wow, well worded.
I was like giving a standing ovation by myself in the office, like reading that. I was like, damn.
Not only are you a piece, you are outsmarted.
Yeah. Now, because he attempted, I mean, she went further, right? Like, she literally crossed all of her T's and dotted her I's. Because he attempted to run Ylana Rebente over with his car, she also ruled that he couldn't hold a driver's license for at least 10 years after his release from prison. So yeah, she was like, take that. Now, Roman Hines was sentenced to 22 years and 4 months in prison with a non-parole period of 17 years.
That may seem short here in America, but in Australia, things are way different in their prison system.
And everywhere else is different. We're just like, you sneezed, 50 years in prison with you. So she sentenced him to 22 years and 4 months with a non-parole period. So they call it a non-parole period for 17 years. So what that means is that he will not be eligible to apply for release until February of 2033 at the age of 77. So he's not going to be getting out very soon. Now, in his sentencing phase, the court played pre-recorded victim impact statements during the sentencing. Ylana Rebente said the following. She said, "I want you to know, Roman, that you could not defeat me. You could not break me. You could not win when you tried so hard, first by hitting me on the head with a hammer, and then by driving over me with your car. You could not make me your victim because I am a survivor. This has only made me stronger than I have ever been. It showed me what I'm capable of.
Damn right.
Right? She went on to describe what life was like after the attack. The paranoia, the trouble sleeping, how it impacted her family, how her mom stopped working, lost her job, and stopped eating herself.
Oh my God, so sad.
How she would have panic attacks at the sight of hammers in a store or just hearing people yell on the street.
Yeah, that's PTSD right there.
Severe PTSD. And Beatrice, hers was much the same. She said, quote, "After the sexual assault, I was waking up in the middle of the night scared, imagining that someone was breaking in. If my partner wasn't home, I wouldn't leave my room. If I heard an unexplained noise, I would break down crying. Every day, I see where the ropes cut into me. I feel fear even when I smell cigarette smoke." Roman smoked. The unnamed third woman, the woman that he attacked 2 years before Ylana and Beatrice, also wrote a statement. She said, quote, "I told myself he is like a dad. He cannot hurt me, but he did. Maybe I am not the best example of strength or the best testimonial for women's rights, but I am happy that I had the chance to play a small role in the confrontation against a big enemy that here is embodied by the violence of Mr. Hines." So Roman Hines, again, is currently imprisoned and has 12 years remaining before he can appeal for release.
There should be t-shirts made for them.
I know.
Like of them, so I could wear it.
I know. No.
Real heroes.
No, they are absolutely real heroes. And also just a final note on that is the reason that I used Lena's last name is that Australia actually has very, 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 very strict laws surrounding publicizing the names of victims. You cannot do it. So both Ylana and Beatrice had to actually appeal to the court for their names to be made public. And this was all done over a year after it went to trial and he was sentenced. And they did so because they were finally healed and ready enough to do and conduct media interviews.
Oh, powerful.
But Beatrice has still not made her last name public. So hence why I called her Beatrice. And then at the end it said Ylana Rebente because I don't know Beatrice's last name. It has not been made public. But yeah, guys, like, holy shit. Like, I could not believe that.
Doesn't this kind of make you really go home and wonder what should be actually available to people as far as porn goes? I feel like, and this isn't the first case of this, right? Like, violence against women is all over the internet. It's so easy to find. Come on. So what's interesting is that this isn't an uncommon theme for a lot of people who end up escalating. A lot of these cases of escalation, right? So in this case, he sought out what he was wanting to do. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it actually propels a fetish, right?
I believe that's more common than not when you're dealing with fetishes.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people can find anything on the internet, any niche you want. If you want to pretend you're a sleuth, if you want to pretend that, or if you're upset, OCD, you can find things that like make it worse.
I'm in a group on Facebook, something like Yeet, like like yeet this person into the sun or whatever. But someone actually was on YouTube and stumbled across, it was just a regular benign travel video, right? Of a woman going to like France or something. And she was in a bakery and she sneezed. And it was a whole like 50 people, sneeze fetishists, who were like, oh my God, actually really describing their sexual urges based on her sneeze. Yeah. And then someone actually linked a website to like a sneeze fetish.
Yeah, see, that would never be a thing. Like, people who have these odd fetishes that shouldn't like really be would never have a place to feel supported in a community of others who want to be like turned on by sneezing.
Right.
Like, that's so bizarre, right? You'd be so alone in the world and nobody else would agree with you that sneezes are sexy. Like,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's German fart porn for a reason.
Yeah, like, so but I like those people being alone too. So like, let's not start that community. That's gross.
But I don't know. And it's just, no kink shaming, obviously, if what you're into is not hurting anyone and whatnot, that's completely fine.
But but ones that are like obviously violence against women, no.
Yeah, ones that are obviously violence against women, it's just, I don't know. It's such a thin line, guys. It's such a thin line.
I'm curious of what all of you who happen to be on like YouTube or something listening to us, comment below and let us know what you think of porn turning to real life.
What's the name of that one, like kink.com?
Oh, yeah.
Which is like the more hardcore BDSM.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not part of that community, so I just don't know.
And then there was N-sex back in the day, which one of my early episodes on my previous podcast was about N-sex. And for those of you who don't know, it was basically a BDSM fetishist who was super into BDSM. And so he decided to start his own website. It was literally like the first streaming live, like video chat room or whatever for porn. Like it was literally the first one. But he went violent. Like these women were cut with razor blades and metal and drowned, like to the point of unconsciousness.
Oh my God, scary.
And he built metal cages, devices, and like nipple clamps, and they were pierced. I mean, we're talking like some really, really, really hardcore shit. And there's an absolutely fantastic documentary on it called Graphic Sexual Horror. And don't worry, it's not like porn or gross. It's actually done from a very academic kind of like overview. But anyway, these women all did it willingly for various reasons, right? But like a lot of women did it and they were paid very, very, very well for it. They had safe words. If they wanted to stop at any time, they could. He typically, not always, respected it. And most of the women were very proud of their appearances and they made a literal shit ton of money. However, NSEX was eventually shut down by the Patriot Act. It was making an estimated $12 million a month.
What?
And we're talking about in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's how much money it was making. And it was the very first one that opened up their chat to people all over the world who would pay to have them torture women. That's literally the point of it for porn. Basically, the U.S. government just shut it down, used the Patriot Act to say that it could be funding terrorism.
Oh, gotcha.
So, but anyway, thin line there. It wasn't shut down because of the content. It was shut down because of like money and funding. But yeah, I mean, the documentary actually shows a lot of it. And I'm like, there is not a sane person in this world who is watching this.
And who has good intention later on down the road. That's very hard to believe for me.
Not to put it crudely, but like if you're, I mean, let's face it, most of it's men, right? Like I'm not hating on men, but most of it's men. But like if your pee-pee can only get erect when you're watching a woman being sliced,
there's something wrong with your wiring.
Yeah, there's something a little wrong with your wiring, sir. You may need to get that checked out. I don't know. But what do you guys think? Should pornography that's violent, should it be restricted? Should it be allowed?
What is the line?
What is the line? Someone tell me what the line is. Some people just don't want porn at all.
So we have two questions so far. So for the comments below, for the YouTube video especially, we have the first question. The question is, do you think that it should exist? Mm-hmm. Right? Do you like support like violence against women in pornography, et cetera, like the very weird outsider fetish stuff like that? And your question for them is,
where should the line legally be drawn? It's interesting. And, you know, in a lot of cases that we've covered too, with people, especially men who rape and murder, there's usually a period of escalation.
Yeah, always. There's always some lead up to it.
There's always a lead up, usually, typically. And violent pornography is typically involved in some way.
I mean, BTK, look at BTK. No one suspected him either.
Yeah. Doting, loving father.
Yeah, same kind of scenario, right? His ex-wives were like, what? What happened? We had 5 kids together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Roman Hines' wife just had no idea. Now his girlfriend, on the other hand, because he was already in his
phase,
his escalation phase.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, guys. It is absolutely crazy, though.
Do you think some people are like born like that? They're eventually going to get there, or just happens, like something just clicks one day?
I think it's a variety of factors. I think it's environmental. I think it may be genetic. I think mainly
nurture versus nature.
Yeah, but I think mainly it's environmental, because if you look into the background history, first of all, number one fact, like Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer, they actually all had TBIs. All of them had TBIs.
Interesting.
Some people had abusive childhoods. Some people didn't. Some people had drug abuse or, you know, whatever. Some people didn't. So I don't know. It's just all across the board. There's so many different
factors that play into
it. And it is above my pay grade. So
it's a good question, though. It's something to think about. Maybe you guys can like think about a little bit. Maybe give us your input on that too.
Yeah. It's crazy. And remember the episode we did on the otaku killer?
Oh, yes.
How he had a crap ton of violent child porn.
I mean, another example, right?
Of escalation.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't seen it, check out those creepy hands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
That is something that it lives in a closet or under your bed when you're a child, and you don't want that.
So that's it for this episode, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. For our next series, if you haven't listened to the Pam Hupp series, the previous series that we just released, please listen to it and let us know what you think. That is also another really super crazy true crime case. And I am looking to do another series as well. So what true crime case are you interested in that you would like to hear a series about?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Let us know.
What are you obsessed with? That's not porn.
As always, you can find us at WeSawTheDevil.com and We Saw the Devil across all social media outlets. And check us out on Patreon if you're liking the show, even just want to talk. We have a Facebook Patreon only group where we talk to everyone and talk about cases, and
which is really awesome.
It is. And we love each and every one of them. And also now is a good time because it is the first of the month, which means you get a full month of benefits.
Yes.
So check us out.
Check out the Patreon only episode of the month. After you sign up, you can get the postcard, get your welcome package.
Which again is on the way.
On the way.
UPS is being a turd. So that's it for this week, guys.
Until next crime.